Welcome back to the Mystical Journey podcast. I am your host, Hervé Geneza. This is where we investigate, examine whether it's possible to be truly liberated. And I'm referring to that revolution of the mind beyond all concepts, all ideas, and all beliefs. We are not concerned with a particular religion or system or technique. We just want to really triple check and see if there is a way to be fully, completely fulfilled, and that requires a drastic change. I think that change can only happen if one is ready to awaken from a dream. The illusion that what we are as a body is all that is. Now, I have prayed a lot in my life, and I was born and raised around the idea of God. God was supposed to give me what I want as long as I wasn't in line with the commandment and what I'm supposed to do, in life, because God has a purpose. That's how I was brought up. That's the conditioning I was actually brought up in. So that's why today, through a lot of questions that I've heard from a lot of people, I want us to understand more and inquire, that idea of God, right? What is God? What is a God, right? Has God created man, or maybe human beings have created God? Can any God save us? And I'm referring to any. And in the end, who can truly liberate us in terms of authority? Is there any authority that we can basically put ourselves into, rely on to liberate us forever? Because last time I checked, even in Buddhism, they say that the gods are stuck in the wheel of reincarnation, just like human beings. So if being liberated is being outside of time, is to transcend time, and the very same gods that are talked about in Hinduism and Buddhism are also stuck in the wheel of reincarnation, then you have to wonder, how could the very same gods stuck somewhere in a cycle can actually save us from a cycle, right? So someone once asked me if God was real, really, and he wanted to actually know 100% if God was real, and whether miracles were a real thing. So this is why we want to inquire and find out today. What is God? What is God? How many books have been written about God? And how many books talk about a God doing amazing things and miracles? And until today, religions and systems have been created around us, around that idea. And what is God? God represents, so far, all I can see is an authority, because everybody who actually interact with any God, they always refer to the God as being higher than them, being stronger than them, being wiser than them. They always have something they can do for us in this physical realm, right? That can help us. Sometimes the God can help us transition to the other realm, to the afterlife. God can exhaust any miracles, any benediction we need. It seems like we need a God to do a lot of things, but we have to ask, right? And then books have been written about, how to get in touch with God. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, etc. And it's always about an authority. And this idea of authority is very interesting because we have the authority of a government, the authority of a mother and a father, the authority of nature, the authority of a lot of places we can go to. They have authority. Someone who is an authority of something. Sometimes someone who is in power, who can actually have the right to say yes or no to something we may want. I believe that the need for authority is much deeper than people think. The reason why we believe, right? Because all religions are based on beliefs. The reason why we believe is because we have fear that if we don't believe and what is being said in these books is true, then we may end up in a really bad shape, whether in this physical life or the next. So we believe because of fear. This fear isn't created by us, and I'm referring to the thinker behind the thoughts, right? Or the knower behind the thoughts, to be more precise. This fear has been created by the very same thing that believes in the idea of God, and that is the thinking mind, the ego. So God, the authority, the ultimate authority, is believed in by us because we have fear. If there was no fear of being in a bad shape, having any consequences, going to hell, there is a good chance that most human beings wouldn't believe in God. Right? Now, this fear doesn't come from actual human beings. It comes from their thinking mind, or the egoic mind, like most people call it. And this is what we want to understand. Why does it this fear exist? Where does it come from? Well, the thinking mind, the ego, has created fear as an idea. It's still an idea because fear is not real. It's just a possibility that something might happen, because it knows that it's going to have an end. One day, in time, the thinking mind will end. It will be the end of the ego, and then our identification to that ego will end, and that is death. And then we can transition to the other side. And depending on what beliefs we have that we actually think they're real, then that's what we see on the other side. And that's actually still being stuck in the wheel of reincarnation. Right. So now, what are we really saying, when we say, I believe in God, right? Because there is fear, the thinking mind that is very creative, right, has created a full image that is alive of God, and then there's a history behind this God, right? It could be one God that's ultimate. It could be multiple gods, and this God has done somehow in the past a lot of amazing things, and then we get this book with these instructions, and we have to be in line, right? This idea is nothing but an idea, right? That it also gives us another idea of safety, right? We want to feel safe when we believe in God, because if we believe in God, who's the creator of all things, then he knows best. Then believing in him is safe, it's great, it's comfortable, so we can actually have an illusory peaceful mind. Now, this answers a question that most children ask when they're young. As soon as a child is introduced to idea of God, they always ask, who created God? That is basically the question. Most adults can't answer these questions because they really don't know. They really don't have an answer, or the answer is always it's always to say that no one has created God because God is self-created, or God is eternal, so therefore there is no beginning. But to be honest, either we have created God or God has created us, but it's not going to be the same, right? That it's not going to be both at the same time. So you pick and choose, or maybe not even pick anything. Do you really think that we have been created by God, by any God or multiple gods, or we have created God, the idea of God that serves us, that gives us this idea of being comfortable, or this safety to navigate the daily life, right? So if you really look at what the idea of God is the best qualities that we have. When we are our best, those are the qualities that most gods have, right? And then the trickster, the devil, is the worst of our being, or the things that we don't like about any gods and anybody or ourselves, right? So we have created the idea of God who's going to save us, who can also give us anything we want, but at the same time, anything that we don't like in us has to go into a being that's against God, right? So that's where the idea of authority, where we can connect to, that can give us a safety and save us from the afterlife, comes from. There is absolutely no God that has ever existed that can save humankind. Absolutely not. Because all the gods, just like human beings, are stuck in the wheel of reincarnation. And it's funny that the wheel of reincarnation is nothing but a memory, a set of memory that basically attach themselves into a physical body and go through another experience over and over until this person is ready to awaken, and the memories no longer serves this human being or this being forever. Therefore, that's the return to source, right? So God, we understand that where God comes from. We understand what God is, right? Now, the question that I always get after that is that, well, when as a Christian, as a Muslim, if I pray, if I go on my knees, God has basically made miracles in my life. So how could you deny God? How could you say God is an idea? Maybe we can also investigate in that. Because what we can observe is that because God is an idea created by human beings that is, offers a lot of safety, the very same human beings who are very creative, when they pray and they truly believe that they're going to be answered, miracles happen. The things that they didn't expect that could happen. And they need to point to a figure, an authority, and say, you made this, because I believe in you. So we have created an idea that we interact with that also gives us exactly what we want. But that idea comes from us, which means we created the gods that actually help us. So that's actually the proof that most people don't want to face, that any rituals, any blessings, any protection that you ask for, any wisdom, any power, any abilities that you have or can request from any god, whether you get it or not, you are actually the one giving it to yourself, because you created this idea and then you interact with this idea to get what you want. That's the fundamental creation behind prayers and chanting and rituals. Most people don't like when they hear that, or aren't really happy about that, because I'm threatening their idea of authority that they have. They have become so identified with the idea of belief into an authority that when I say these things, they feel threatened. When they're threatened, they become frustrated because they don't want to give up that idea, because that's the doorway, that's the window to the beginning of awakening. So then when a Christian or Muslim say, well, I used to have a backache, and then I prayed and I'm healed, that's the proof that God exists. Well, I'm usually I would never say no to someone who says a miracle has happened for whatever reason, but I know what they mean when they say God has done great things in my life, because they have done great things in their lives for themselves, because it's such it represents so much responsibility to accept that we have been on the other side, not only of creating the prayers but also answering the prayers themselves. And this is this is a little bit of almost a game if you really think about it, right? The very same person who creates the prayer is the one actually making them happen, and that is hard for most people to understand or to even grasp. But you don't have to accept or reject what I say, but at least you owe to yourself to investigate and find out whether this is actually true, right? Because do you know, out of curiosity, do you know any god from any pantheon, from any system and religion that offers or has offered any human being total liberation, as in, this state that is beyond time, being basically one with the unknowable, one with source? Because the Christianity just says on the other side, if you make it to heaven, if you do, you'll be communing with God, singing for God, or it'll be all happiness, but it's not actually becoming one with source, right? It's not a liberation, because you're still under the authority of God. But I'm saying there is no authority. There's absolutely no authority anywhere. There's absolutely no headquarters of consciousness anywhere. No one is running anything for you to basically make it happen, right? All there is that you're going through this lifetime, which is in time, right? It has a beginning and an end, and the secret to all secrets is to awaken while you're still alive, not when you die. Because when you die, you hold on to those miracles and basically they come back into a new body. That's the simplest way you can explain reincarnation. So in the end, thought has created fear, in order to make you think that there is an end to all of this, but really thought is basically born in time, so has to die, has to end. You, the essence of all essences, can't not die, but you have been identified with thought. Therefore, anything thought believes or feels, you think it's you. So you think one day you'll end. All right. So that was really my approach and a little introduction about, what is God? Can God help us? Is there any really authority anywhere? But next time, I want us to talk about a subject a little bit more fun. I want us to talk about happiness. I want us to talk about something that I always hear. I want to be happy. I just want to be happy. I want to see if that's possible, and I want to know if we understand exactly what we mean when we say I want to be happy, because I hope that we are referring to something that's eternal instead of something that basically just short term. And is that actually possible today, or is that something that has to be built over time, or is this a dream, right? Thank you very much for listening to the Mystical Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Mystical Journey Podcast, and please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time.